This is the Hudson Yards 34th Street station on the 7-line extension in New York City. This extension cost $2.4 billion at the time it was built, and at just 1.6 kilometers, it has one of the highest per kilometer costs of any metro extension in the world. Simply put, this is a weird extension. The station design and layout is weird, the development it serves is weird, the story of how the project got prioritized to be constructed is weird, the slow inclined elevators are weird, and the fact that there are non-revenue tail tracks for 8 blocks after the final station is weird. And that makes it very interesting and worthy of exploration and understanding. As we explore, I'll discuss what makes the design of this station so unique, why this extension was built, and I'll close with some lessons we can learn from this extension about building more public transit in the USA. We'll start with the unique station design. The station has 2 major entrances, this one at 34th Street and another a block up at 35th Street. There are 16 escalators, 2 inclined elevators, and the tracks are 38 meters underground. It was expected to carry 27,000 passengers per day when it first opened, and designed to have the capacity for 40,000 passengers per hour, which is part of why the station area is so massive. The escalators are laid out into 3 separate wells, with 1 leading from the northern entrance and 2 leading to the southern entrance. We're going down the central well. The southernmost well has only 1 up-traveling escalator, which shares the well with 2 inclined elevators that we'll explore later. As you can see, this is a very deep station. The station and tail tracks need to travel under a bunch of other transit infrastructure, including the Long Island Railroad 30th Street Yard, the Empire Connection Tunnel, the East River Tunnel, and the currently under construction Gateway Tunnel when that's completed. There are also super long tail tracks coming out of the south end of the station to hold trains when they're out of service. These tracks together can hold 6 full-length trains. They did this because there isn't enough yard space to hold more 7-line trains, but I can't help but wonder if there couldn't have been a better solution. Even just looking on Google Earth, you can see that the Corona Maintenance Facility, which supports the 7-line, has a massive parking lot next to it that, in theory, the yard could be expanded into. And even something insane like a double-decker train yard might have been cheaper than adding additional tunneling, which is very expensive. We're approaching platform level now, and you can see that, despite all the escalators earlier, there aren't any to be found connecting the mezzanine to the platform. I find choices like this really fascinating. Down here at platform level, there's just 1 elevator, but there are tons of staircases up to the mezzanine area. It's fascinating how wide the platform is. Really shows how many people they were planning for the station to serve. So it's definitely future-proof. You could never fault it for being underbuilt. This is the platform mezzanine. Kind of crazy that this whole huge thing is here. It's after the morning commute rush, so it's not too packed. And by not too packed, I mean there's barely anybody here. There are 2 entrances to the station. We went down the main one earlier, and from that main entrance, there are 2 separate escalator wells. We went down, I think, the larger of them, and now we're going to try going up the smaller one. The station was originally projected to have 200,000 daily passengers by 2025, but in 2024, it actually had a reported weekday average of just 19,490 passengers. Now, I want to make a nuanced point here. New York City's system-wide ridership has not reached 2019 levels, and these projections were made before the COVID-19 pandemic, so it's no surprise that the station isn't at the projected 200,000 daily boardings. It's also worth noting that the station had a weekday average of 18,875 boardings in 2019, so it's actually increased slightly from then. That said, only the Times Square 42nd Street Bryant Park Station complex, served by 17 different subway lines, had over 200,000 daily boardings in 2019, and none did in 2024, so personally, I find that ridership projection questionable. What did they think was going to happen every day at Hudson Yards that could give a station served by a single line's terminus enough daily riders to be one of the most used stations in the entire network? If you have insight into their ridership projections, please share in the comments. When trains arrive, passengers pour off the trains and up the stairs and escalators, and trains arrive and depart frequently, coming every 3 minutes at peak times and every 5 to 7 minutes off-peak, with 20-minute frequencies through the night to provide 24-hour service. That's such a weird station. This right here is the infamous inclined elevator one of the major sources of delays during construction that led to them opening the station like a year or two later than you're supposed to. Here comes our friend. Hello, fellow inclined elevator. This elevator is intentionally slow to deter people who don't need it from using it, which is kind of crazy if you ask me, because it makes it slow for the people who do need it. I don't know, I mean, maybe there's a case for this that I don't understand. You should comment if you have opinions and perspectives on this, but it seems a bit odd to me. Over there is a single escalator going up. This is so bizarre. Incline elevators like this are super rare. This one was built custom for this station. Overall, custom pieces like this make a project more expensive and more difficult. Standardization is one of the ways that you can keep costs down, and this entire station was basically a custom job, so that made it difficult. But we are arriving. Wow, it really pulls in very slowly. And there we go. All right. At least it passes the level boarding check. I want to give some appreciation here to the New York City Subway staff who clean the trains at the terminal stations. I've seen this at a few of the places I've been on this trip, and they're doing a great job. The trains are in pretty clean shape, and yeah, it does not go unappreciated. So, yeah, from all the transit riders to if any of those people happen to see this, thank you very much. Look at this, they still have the old map. This map is crazy. New York City's population is well over 8 million, and though it has one of the largest subway systems on Earth by track mileage, the system is generally designed to move people into and out of Manhattan, leaving many trips between boroughs underserved. And even within Manhattan, the Lexington Avenue subway corridor, served by the 4, 5, and 6 trains, is one of the busiest transit corridors in North America and is routinely overcrowded. Furthermore, this extension wasn't even identified in a 1968 transit system expansion plan. So, in a city with high demand for rapid transit expansion in many other places, why is Hudson Yards the extension that actually got built? To understand that, we have to look back over 5 decades. That 1968 system plan was called the Metropolitan Plan for Action. This plan called for some projects that have been built today, including the Long Island Railroad's East River connection to Grand Central Terminal and the 2nd Avenue Subway. The plan called for many projects that were never built, but interestingly did not call for a western extension of the 7 line. In 1969, then Mayor John Lindsay's administration proposed a new convention center on Manhattan's west side as part of a large west side redevelopment plan. This plan was rejected by the New York State Legislature because it didn't replace enough of the housing supply it would seize from displaced residents, but the concept of a convention center on the west side stuck around. A site further up Manhattan near 44th Street was considered, but due to higher costs and the city's ongoing fiscal crisis, that site was dropped in favor of the site that was ultimately selected at 34th Street, and the New York State Legislature voted to fund the project in 1979. Somehow, the convention center was built without any direct connection to rapid transit, or, seemingly, any plans to build such a connection. By the 1980s, American cities like New York were starting to realize that the private car was not an adequate solution for urban transportation, and people in positions of authority began to take notice. In 1986, Ross Sandler, then New York Mayor Ed Koch's transportation commissioner, spoke to the New York Times, admitting that the new convention center would create transportation problems. Sandler also mentioned that the MTA would study several possible transit connections to the new convention center, including an extension of the 7 train. And with that, the concept was born. So there's also another exit, and we're going to go check that one out now. There was very little movement on a 7 train extension for the next 13 years. But in 1999, then New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani came out in support of the extension. Really though, he came out in opposition to the arguably much more important 2nd Avenue subway, dismissing that project as something of a pipe dream, and arguing that if there were to be an extension, it should be to the Hudson Yards area where he wanted the West Side Stadium constructed, which was to be at the center of New York's bid for the 2012 Summer Olympics and to become the new home for the New York Jets. In 2001, then New York State Senator Chuck Schumer advocated for the 7 extension as part of an effort to expand the Midtown office district. Support from local and state political leadership kept the project under consideration, but in 2005, political opposition stopped the West Side Stadium, causing New York City to lose their 2012 Olympics bid. But then Mayor Michael Bloomberg still wanted to build the 7 extension, as it had become a centerpiece in his signature Hudson Yards redevelopment plan.
It's worth noting that multiple mayors and politicians over many years used their positions to advocate for the project. Anyone can say that there should be a rapid transit extension, but in this case, the people with the power to make it happen advocated for it. And there's definitely a lesson in there. So, in 2006, the city moved to create funding for the project, and the extension project began, set to open in 2013. The project faced cost and timeline escalations, but those, while not ideal, kind of come with the territory of major civil engineering and construction projects. Projects often have many unknown qualities, and it's not until work has begun that true costs can be correctly measured. This is not to excuse delays or cost overruns, but to contextualize them. The Hudson Yards extension was no exception, but one source of delay was very unique: the inclined elevator, initially scheduled for opening in December 2013. The opening was delayed to June 2014, then November, then February 2015, and ultimately moved to September 13, 2015 to accommodate for testing and troubleshooting that the inclined elevator needed. It was a customized piece of equipment, and getting the thing to work right proved to be challenging, which contributed to the delays. But the station did ultimately open.
One of the bizarre things about this station is that the two entrances, one over here that I just came out of, and then the other about a block that way, are super close to each other. Now, that's a bit odd to me because the station platform length is very long. Like, the box itself that they had to construct is huge. There's a full-length mezzanine, and I would think that if you were going to be going to all this trouble to build a station, you would want to have the largest catchment area possible, which you could achieve by having your exits further apart. But projects like this are insanely complicated, and there's probably a very long and thorough reason for it, but it's a bit odd. And speaking of a bit odd, here we are at Hudson Yards. Decades ago, when they were proposing the 7-line extension, part of how they funded it was what you're looking at right now. They used a tax increment financing approach to sell municipal bonds for the tax revenue that would be created from all of this new real estate. It's a really fascinating and interesting approach for financing, and it's something that a lot of agencies could use to build new trains to places that they haven't developed yet. Unfortunately, Hudson Yards isn't the best reference point because what they built is not actually all that great. When I was younger and I came here, I was really impressed at just the absolute scale of it. You know, these are massive buildings, and there was nothing even close to this before this development project. But when I come here a little older and maybe with more perspective, I guess, it doesn't feel very full of life. You know, I now, having visited Copenhagen, have a reference point for a city that is just completely vibrant in an incredible way. And there are people around here. You know, it's not like it's completely dead. Doom loop narratives about cities are a lie. You know, they are not accurate. And so, you know, if you hear them, just come to these places and see for yourself if they're truly dead. But still, you know, did they make something pleasant, livable, human scale, somewhere that you really want to be? Not really. This was an office development that has a shiny veneer and this ridiculous thing here. I am, of course, talking about the vessel, the $100 million staircase to nowhere that serves basically only as a monument to man's hubris. This is so dumb. You could have done so much with this money. They could have built so much housing with the money that went into this. It's just...
I'm going to go over the tax increment financing approach in a little bit more detail because TIFs are interesting. They are a public financing debt instrument which sets a principal amount based on tax revenues from a source that is expected to generate significantly increased revenue, such that that increased revenue can pay off the cost of financing. In more simple terms, it's a loan against the taxes that the area in question should generate in the future. They work best when there are plans to redevelop an area, which would increase the land values, which would lead to higher taxes paid, which pays back the lender who made the cash loan to the loan receiver. They are a good way to generate money for public projects like this if political leaders refuse to actually tax the ultra-wealthy, but they do come at a cost. Tax revenue for the duration of the loan payback period cannot go to anything else, like operating costs or other services. On top of that, the terms of these loans always have interest paid to the lender, and lenders are anyone on the private financing market who can afford to give governments a bucket of cash up front. Those private lenders receive a percent, not for doing any labor, but simply for having already had a lot of money. And on top of that, Unless the risk is explicitly placed into the private sector, the public will have to accommodate for cost escalations or unforeseen drops in expected revenue. So, are TIFs a good idea? It's complicated.
So what did we learn here? 1. Transit construction projects need political will from all sides to move forward. And 2. Ridership projections are usually a little overambitious, and dishonesty can hurt other projects. And 3. Station customization is maybe not the best choice in all cases. And 4. Ultimately, I think it's good that this was built. You know, one could hope that they would learn lessons, but I don't know. This money would have been better spent on the Interborough Express.
Now, of course, the money spent on this project was generated by Hudson Yards and the TIF we talked about, so the money couldn't go straight to the Interborough Express, but I stand by my point. If revenue is going to be generated, it probably makes more sense for it to go to a route or an extension that's going to serve more people, especially in the outer boroughs who currently aren't sufficiently served. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this video. It means a lot to me that you choose to tune in, so thank you so much.
So, you know, it is definitely future.